Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Smith, and I thank you and appreciate you for being here for another week and another show. I hope you've had a fantastic week, and I hope you're enjoying the shows, be it these longer format Friday shows or even the 5-minute Monday shows that we're putting together. If you do have any ideas for the show or guests that you want me to talk to or think I'd have a good conversation with, that actually could even be you. Please give me a shout, let me know, and we will make it happen. I'm always looking for people to sit across from, stick a microphone in front of both our faces and see exactly what happens. Today's conversation is with a lady I met recently at a British Mums networking group. Thank you to British Mums. Big shout out to them for inviting me down to talk about sport at one of their recent events. And I met this lady because she was also one of the speakers. And when she got up to talk, she spoke with passion. She was clear. She had the attention of the whole room for the minutes that she was talking for. And she inspired me to think about education and the use of today in quite a different way. I found her during the networking part of the event and I said, I need to speak to you on my podcast, to which she, thankfully, and that's why I'm here today, she said yes. She runs a really interesting education solution company, is what I'm going to call it, based here in Dubai, that is fueled completely by passion and energy to help children navigate themselves in the world of education and in the world as a whole. We talk about things that I think are super topical to a lot of us, no matter if you have children or you don't have children. Obviously, having children in the modern day, things like tech, the way society is going, the way that children learn, majorities, minorities, all of these different things is a huge, huge challenge. And what we attempt to do in today's show is give some thoughts, or I ask my guests to give some thoughts because I'm not best placed to give them, about maybe how to make things a little bit easier and to give the children the education that they like, they enjoy, and they're excited to go out and enjoy. And at the same time, help us, or you guys who might be parents, might be thinking of being parents, a little or a couple of different tools to make your life also a lot more enjoyable. This week's show announcements. By the time you're listening to this podcast, I may or may not be on a plane to Milan. Yes, this weekend, Sunday the 7th or 8th? No, it's the 7th. I know it's the 7th. The 7th of April is the Milan Marathon. We've been talking about this for a number of months, and it is taking place this weekend. Hop over to Milano Marathon Running, something like that, and you can track all of the InnerFight athletes that are over there. There are about 20, some from Ireland as well are joining us from InnerFight Endurance Ireland, as well as a whole bunch from here, and also some of our international clients, which is going to be absolutely awesome. Here at the gym next week in Dubai, there is the confusion or the small gift of perhaps a week off for everybody. Therefore, we have a slightly revised class schedule. Monday through Friday, 6:30 class is a normal mainline class, 7:30 class is a normal mainline class, and 8:30 class is a normal mainline class. 9:30 class is our specialty classes, which on Monday and Wednesday is pure strength, on Tuesday is weightlifting, and on Thursday is gymnastics. And yes, I did all of that without looking at my notes and probably got most of it wrong. No, that is the schedule for next week. So and Friday is just a normal 9:30 class. So you have options to come and train during the holiday. 6:30, 7:30, and 8:30 is a mainline class. 9:30 is a specialty class. There is a small twist to it, in that next week's programming is something a little bit special, something a little bit fun, and something a little bit different. You will have an insane amount of fun every single day, but the workouts are pretty hard. I'll be totally honest. If you want to check out more about what the workouts are, head over to the InnerFight Way and go to the daily training, the daily workout section there. We also did a podcast last Monday. If you missed it, please go and check it out, where we talked with the various people that put together all the programs for all of our different offerings here at InnerFight. We spoke about them and what is going on in April, where their programs are going, what people can expect. Super interesting. It was only about a 5 or 8 minute show where we had all of the guys on talking about that. So if you want to know the month overview, go and check out that podcast. And if you want to know on a weekly basis, just hop over to the InnerFight Way. We put up the training programs or the direction for our mainline class, our specialty classes, and our endurance program and ladies run club program. Next week, there are no afternoon classes. We're having a little bit of a break. You guys are having a break, but we're basically open to lunchtime. Same in the cafe. The cafe will not really change for many people. It's normally open 5:30 till 1. It's now open 6:30 till 1. One more announcement. After the Easter holidays, Jerome will be launching, or relaunching, should we say, the InnerFight Academy. Jamie's been working on this for a number of years, where he's developing youngsters in sport-specific strength and conditioning programs for specific sports. He's worked a lot with the rugby guys. This is a 3-day-a-week program. It will run for the whole of the spring, summer term. So it's about a 7-week program where the guys come in, or girls come in 3 days a week. See Jerome. It's at 4 till 5 p.m. There's 21 sessions over the 7 weeks. InnerFight Academy will kick off after the school holidays. If you want more information, reach out to us, either winninginnerfight.com or ask at reception, or get hold of Jerome directly, jh@innerfight.com. He will let you know all about the InnerFight Academy for young sports people, or basically if you have kids that want to get a little bit stronger and are not in an athletics program or not in a strength and conditioning program, or just have something going on that you maybe want to get them in the gym. That is happening throughout the spring, summer term, 3 sessions a week for the 7 weeks. That's it for this week's announcements. Let's jump into the show. This is episode number 892 of the InnerFight podcast. Education with Heather Harris. No matter where you are in the world, thanks a lot for tuning in. Let's get into today's show. Let's rock and roll. Heather, welcome to the show. I want to kick off. I want to put you in at the deep end. Okay. I know you like a challenge. What is the biggest issues that we're seeing in education in the current day?
Oh my goodness, that's a massive topic. So at the moment, I guess where we're at is that education's out of date. So everyone wants something different to what's actually being offered. Yeah. UK education is way, way, way out of date. And to bring it into line, the universities have started to move into line. So you've got online exams, but I get very, very concerned that, on the one hand, we're saying to a child, you can't, don't use your computer, don't chat GPT it, don't do this. Yet, you go into real world, the first thing you do if you've got to write something is you chat GPT it. So why can't the children do it if we're doing it as adults, And it's kind of, everything is online. So don't use your computer. Oh, go and research online for this. Yeah. Don't copy it. Well, actually, why can't they copy it? If it's been well written, why can't they copy it? And so education needs to transform, because the kids are going to enter a new world where education is online and it's information accessible. What they now need to learn is the skills of how to use that information in the right way. And the other thing that I feel education isn't doing at the moment is it's not allowing children to learn resilience effectively.
We're going to have such a good chat. We'll try and keep it under an hour, as I always say, but this is resilience within the first 2 minutes is absolutely brilliant, and resilient children. Let's wind it back then. Okay. You're obviously and that's what I noticed when I heard you speak a couple of weeks ago. You're super passionate about education, it seems, and about children. Where did this all start?
Oh, goodness. So it started back in Wales. We were just talking about this earlier. So basically, when I finished work as in my own business, I sold it and retired when I was about 28, 30. And I got called by the local college, and they said, we've got a load of children that are third generation unemployed. What can you do with them? And I was like, okay, I've got nothing else to do with my life. Let me turn them around. And I literally went in and turned this group of children around, massively. So gave them hope, gave them focus, gave them challenges, made them aware that, they were responsible for their own lives, set them on the right path. And that was what started my passion, is that, one person can change as many as you want.
That's a pretty big task. Third generation, it's tough, isn't it? When you almost inherit, we talk a lot about children being a product of environment, and when you inherit quite a brutal environment, what was the key? What turns it? Like, how do you, out of anyone, because I'm sure a lot of people tried with those, or do try with those kind of kids, was it one thing that you did or focused on or said that really started to turn things?
I believe in them. And that's it, finish. Every single child that comes through me, I believe in them, and I believe they have the ability to make a difference. And what happens so often is that children fall into this history of failing. Their parents believe they're going to fail. They become what people believe they can do. I don't believe that there is any limit to what anyone can do, and everybody has got a talent. Now, finding that talent is the important part. And every single child that I work with, I believe they will be great.
What makes you believe in a kid from the get-go?
Because I know that if I believe in them, they'll believe in themselves.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, but it's totally that. But the children I deal with, even the parents don't believe in them anymore. What my child's going to fail. Well, okay, if you tell your child's going to fail, your child's going to fail. But they don't have to fail. What I need to do is find what I need to do to change that round. And I always say to parents, there's a key to every door. All we need to do is find the right key to unlock it.
Why do you think parents believe that their kids are going to fail?
I don't know. It terrifies me, because if as a parent you don't believe in your child, nobody will. I think in Dubai is particularly all about gloss and just being amazing. And so many parents, the ones that have got the children that are succeeding, they're so good at telling you that. The people that haven't got the children, they're getting first places and A's, and they kind of go, oh, my child's not doing so well. Their work isn't on display, and it's that kind of, the world is telling them the child's failing, and they start to believe it.
Do you think some of it's also born from their own, let's call it, failures in life, inadequacies?
Yeah, possibly. I'd like to think that nobody really fails in life, but you are right. Some people don't believe in themselves, so then they're not going to believe in their children. If you can't believe in yourself first, you're not going to believe in somebody else.
It's difficult for me because I don't have children, but I have a lot of people that are in our community, and it's probably not the nicest thing to say, I see them as children, but I feel like I have a responsibility to them. So there is that kind of connection. A lot of people choose to have children, but sometimes I think they don't know why they want to have children.
I think it's what they're supposed to do. It's kind of society's norm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes. So everyone expects you get married or you get together when you're going to have your child. You don't have to have a child, but it's almost society puts so much expectation on that. They do. And I think everyone sees the baby and the cuteness and, but they forget that the responsibility of taking a child through to adulthood is actually massive, and it's exhausting.
Especially if it's not straight and simple, which
Totally.
I'm not sure if I definitely wasn't a straight and simple case.
None of my children are either. So my children, my eldest, he's one of the, we took him to the, when he was about 12, we ended up taking him to an educational psychologist, mainly because I knew he was dyslexic, and I needed that dyslexia statement to give him extra time in his exams. And the psychologist turned around to me and basically said, look, your child is going to be in jail by the time they're 14. They've got no hope. And I was like, you are kidding me. This is not the story I want for my child. So my child is not in jail. He's 26. He's director of his own company. He's doing really, really well. He plays rugby. He's fantastic. Everyone who meets him says how amazing he is. The story isn't pre-written. Every day's a new story. Every day's a new opportunity. And if you follow that trajectory that people think you should, and they say this is what you're going to become, well, that will be what you're going to become.
So if there's a parent listening, what's the advice?
The advice is every day is new. Believe in your child. Every single child is born to be great at something. You just need to find that something. Yeah. if you tell somebody they will become something, they'll become something. So in the morning, oh, what's wrong with you this morning? You're not feeling well. Your child instantly isn't well.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great day today. What are we going to do today? It's a different story.
We have the power to change people just through that. And because a lot of people will be like, okay, well, what if it's not a great day? But when a day started, you actually have the choice. You're at the breakfast table, right?
Yeah.
With that attitude, you have the choice.
And not every day is great, but there are good things about every day.
Yeah.
And I know that's a real well-known saying, and it sounds a bit cliche, but don't focus on the bad things. Focus on the good things. You know, I mean, if I look at my life and I look at people go and they go, oh my God, how did you get through that? But actually came out the other side. And I always say, you know, if you climb a mountain, the steeper the mountain is, the better the view at the top.
Yeah.
And every life has got those little mountains in it. But once you get to the top, it's all fine. So focus that you're going to get to the top, even if you're having a hard time.
Have you always been uber positive?
I don't think I am particularly.
You are right now, and it's amazing. But I mean, because I often think about where that comes from as well, because we're in this, the same as we're a product of our environment could be a product of its previous environment. So what was your upbringing like? What was your education like?
I had quite a hard upbringing, I have to say. It definitely wasn't a bed of roses. So my father was away. So my father was a sea captain. So he was away 7 months at a time. And my mum was very, very challenging. And we lived in a very small farm in West Wales. And I had a twin sister who was definitely difficult. I mean, beyond difficult. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, I have to say. And I wasn't unbelievably, I wasn't a bright child. My sister was uber bright, so everyone was like, "Oh, she's going to do amazing things. She's going to go on to, set the world on fire. She's A grade." Well, I was a C or a D grade, but I was dyslexic, which obviously wasn't picked up, or I am dyslexic, and that's not picked up in school. If you go back, I'm 55, so, go back that time, it was never picked up.
Did it exist?
It did not really. Yeah. And so that was really challenging. So it didn't matter how hard I tried. Oh, Fiona did really well, but you didn't do quite so well. It didn't matter. It didn't matter because I had other strengths, and I always knew that quietly I would do my own thing. And yeah, she's done well. She's a manager in a health service, but I run a company that spans across 6 countries. I've worked for 3 rulers. I've worked with prime ministers. I think I've done okay.
Sounds like you've both done. I think mum and dad should be very proud. Maybe it is that school of hard knocks at the start that helps kids. And again, it's difficult because I'm not bringing up kids in the world right now, and sometimes I put myself in, but we seem to reward a lot of mediocrity and participation. Anyone that listens to the show often knows that participation medals are one of my biggest hates in life. So does it come to a point where we see you've come through quite a hard upbringing and you've been able to create these connections with kids and this awareness? Does it come to a point where actually we've got to turn around and say, yeah, society is a little bit, the way that we're educating the children, we're a bit soft?
Yeah, it comes back to resilience. That word resilience to me is about everything. As long as parents keep solving their children's problems, you don't learn on your own. I brought myself up. My mum had nervous breakdown. We lived in West Wales on our own, and problem solving was an early age. We had to problem solve. Yeah. And I think children these days don't problem solve. That means that they can't work out how to get out of the situation they're in, or as long as mum's setting the dynamic and the trajectory, they're not planning their own lives. They're not planning their own success.
Yeah, that's what I see a lot with kids. Like it's sort of
mum says.
Yeah.
Therefore,
are we past a point, because it's become a norm now, and this is one of the biggest things that almost worries me, that children that are maybe treated, it sounds bad, but harder by their parents, or things are not, in this case, solved for them, they become quite an anomaly.
Yeah. And
therefore potentially get bullied by the other kids because their life is so different. They don't fit in anymore.
I think the majority are pampered now.
Yeah.
It's the minority that aren't. And you just don't see in Dubai, I mean, I think the UK is very different, I have to say, but in Dubai, you don't see children that have to find their lunch boxes, put their shoes and socks on, get themselves to school, remember they haven't done this. You know, that's being done for them. Now, a child who is in year 5 and the maid is still putting their shoes and socks, finding their sports kit, reminding them to take their lunchbox, we've got a problem.
Yeah. How do we tell parents that we've got a problem there?
You can tell them as much as you like. It's whether they want to act on it.
But I mean, this is the circle, and this must be where you pull your hair out or just tell people straight, is that if a parent's coming to you for educational help, actually the solution is not you getting them a maths tutor sitting down and doing that work. The solution actually could be in the fact that the maid's helping them pack their lunch.
So we're very unusual as a company. I mean, the fact we sell tutoring, but as soon as a parent comes in and says to me, you know, we need a tutor, my first question is why?
Right.
Because unless I understand why, there's no, you know, there's no further dialogue. Because if a child has missed a gap because they've travelled, they've moved into a new curriculum, absolutely 100% will fill that gap.
Yeah.
If it's because they just need to push up to the next grade, sometimes they sit in the middle band, and because it's a big class, it's hard to push through to the next grade. So yes, okay, we'll give them a bit of support.
Yeah.
If it's just because everyone else has got a tutor, there's no way you're having a tutor from me. What's the point?
Really? And that's the difference as well, right? Because you do what you do because you're passionate about it. It's not really about buying a Ferrari.
No, it's not. For me, it's not. It drives my husband mad because it's not about money. And he's like, for goodness sake, you know, you're working 18 hours a day and you're not making any money. I don't care. For me, my satisfaction's in the kids.
Let's continue then. You've got this group of kids. You believe in them. Continue, because it's a good story. I heard it before we kicked off. How did your journey continue from there in education?
So obviously, within the college, I was obviously promoted till I wasn't dealing with children anymore, which I hated. So I left, and I had my own family. We were sort of growing up, so I had a bit of time with my kids. And then I was headhunted, and I worked for a government organisation. And then I was selected to work with Prince Charles on the Tourism Select Committee, which was just amazing. And then when I left there, I did things with Assembly Government Advisor, and then my husband, like husbands do, decided to take a job in Sharjah. So then I was headhunted when I got to Sharjah to go and visit the palace, and I was offered a job with the Sharjah government. So I worked there for 12 years, which was amazing.
In education?
No, tourism, marketing, looking after Sharjah generally, which was an interesting challenge, but. You know, that's
a whole other show.
Yeah, it definitely was. So I was working. So tourism was, my degree was in tourism. Right. And then I'd had enough then. So after 12 years, they decided they wanted British people at the top. They wanted Arabic people at the top. And I set up my own business then, back working with children, which is what I love. You had 3 boys. I've got 4 children. I've got 3 boys and 1 girl. The 3 boys, you realised through trying to help them that they were also dyslexic. Yeah. Is that something that is passed down to them? Yeah, so dyslexia generally is hereditary. So my dad was dyslexic, I'm dyslexic, and obviously the boys are. But and so my eldest one's a stepson, and he's very bright and very able, and he missed out on the dyslexia gene. But my second one, and I just knew, and everyone kept saying, no, he's fine, but I knew. How did you know? I just did. The struggle was too real. He couldn't get his letters, and he couldn't get his sounds. I just knew, and I can't tell you how I knew, but mums know. And more often than not, mums will come to me, even today, and they'll say, but we know, and I say, yeah, okay. But the problem is you can't ed-psych them to find out if they have got dyslexia till they're about 7 years old, by which time they've missed so much work in school and they've struggled so hard. And then my second one's dyslexic, dyspraxic, dyscalculia. It was like he had the whole lot. So by that point, I knew that, I had to do something. And of course, education here at the time didn't really have inclusive. Just being inclusive education just wasn't around. So it was really important to be able to put that support in for my children and for others.
So how did you navigate it? You're in a foreign country. You've identified these things because you've been through them as well, and you're obviously super intelligent, so you've probably done some research about it. But the system, to all intents and purposes, was, and we'll get to it, but probably still is, quite broken. How do you navigate that?
You've got two options, haven't you? Sit back and go, okay, my child's going to fail, or you say, right, okay, my child's not failing, I'm going to sort this out. So I went for the second option, and I went and I did some extra training. I did a whole load of courses so that I could actually support them in their own development, so I could support them and their friends. And then I realised that actually I was getting really good results. So I had kids that were getting 1 out of 10 in spelling tests, and suddenly they're getting 20 out of 20 or 10 out of 10 in spelling tests just by looking at these different ways of doing things. And it's just rethinking it. We said earlier the education system is broken. Education, it's that old thing. You judge a fish about how they climb a tree, and they're going to fail. If you ask a dyslexic child to pass a spelling test, they're never going to get it right. But if you change the way they learn the spellings and the way that they understand, of course they're going to get it right.
Generally, here I've seen myself through. I was educated here for a few of my earlier years. Anyone who wasn't normal, there wasn't either a system for them, and I think even more so than the UK, because obviously the UK is probably a little bit ahead by building systems, but we're quite sort of pushed to one side.
Yeah.
How do you deal as a parent? How do you deal with that?
It was tough. I think it's getting easier now, and schools are a bit more accommodating. But my eldest was one of those children that, if you said don't jump, he was like, how high and how far do you want me to jump? And he was always the ringleader, and he was always. This guy. you two will get on very well, I'm sure. But he pushed the boundaries. That's his thing. If you say no, it's yes. If you say yes, it's like, okay, I'm going. How far was my yes? Because I need to go beyond that boundary. Now he went to a school in Sharjah that was very strict. It was full of very well mannered, very normal children. And he did not fit in. He liked rugby. He just liked being wild. He was just a fidgeter. He wasn't particularly academic. So we ended up actually sending him from here back to the UK, because he was never going to fit in. And sometimes you just have to realise that your child needs a different environment. So we stuck him in a rugby college in the UK, where the only trouble he could have got into was wrestling sheep, which he did. But, hey, that's, it's what it was. But it doesn't mean he's a bad kid. Yeah. It just meant that he didn't fit the school environment.
You were obviously in a decent position, let's call it a fortunate position, where you could send him, you had back home, and you could make that work. I hear parents that feel quite almost trapped.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a mindset, but maybe it is genuinely financial.
Obviously everything here costs money, and I know there's a lot of people that are struggling at the moment. But I think if your child doesn't fit in school, the chances are there's something they're going to be better at. Now, it might be that they're particularly musical, it might be that they're particularly sporty, and that's when they look at things like, like your company, and you bring them where they can let off steam and where they can feel good. The problem is, if a child is always being told in school that they're not good, they're stupid, they're getting low marks, they never feel good about themselves, and they will always be a problem child, because all children have to feel good. So that's when we need to look at, are they good at sport? Are they good at, are they good at singing? Are they good at music? What is their talent? What is the thing that's going to make them great? Now, that costs money. Obviously, not everything is free, but taking your child out cycling, or taking them walking, or taking, there are things you can do that don't cost money, and it's up to you as a parent to find that success route. Yeah,
right. It's interesting that I don't know if you noticed, but during the small time that I was talking the other day, I asked one question: if the mums in the room had a conversation with their children about how the children feel towards sports, and nobody put their hand up, which was, for me, was a little bit of an alarm bell, but it's exactly what you're saying. It's like, okay, we've got a kid in a class who can't add up or can't spell, depending on what they're suffering from, or just can't concentrate. But we keep on forcing them to do it, hoping it get better, rather than taking the child to one side and saying, cool, what do you enjoy doing?
Yeah.
Why don't we try this? And then, but how do you connect? So if a kid, we take a kid out in a certain way and understand that that particular child loves sport, we still understand that basic mathematics and English skills are quite important for life. How do we then bring that sport back in? Because that's the key, right?
Well, do you know what? I had this really interesting, I've always been, I always deal with kids that they want to be a footballer or they want to be a tennis player or, and I had this really interesting conversation. I don't know if you know a guy called Patrice Evra. Okay, so he plays football, apparently quite good football. I have no idea. I don't know. And he said to me, I think he was captain of France, but played to a very high level. And when I was having supper with him, he said to me, I only had one plan. My plan was plan A. I wanted to be a footballer. Now, up until that point, I always said to children, I said, well, that's great. You need to have a plan B as well. And something with what he said really resonated. And actually, if you want to do something, have a plan A. You don't need a plan B because you've got plan A. And I think sometimes we're very good at sort of saying, okay, you're okay at sport, you're good at sport, but you still got to do maths and English. Now, the child's now torn between two things. They're good at sport, but they're not going to become excellent because we're still holding them back. We're still not telling them they're amazing. Now, yes, they do have to get English and maths because to progress into anything, you do need English and maths. But that doesn't have to be the main focus, does it?
No, absolutely not.
And if they don't get English and maths when they're 16, they can get English and maths when they're 30, if they need it at that point in their lives.
Do you think that's... We're saying the current education system has its downfalls, but do you think that's maybe a downfall of the older education system, that it's like once you finish school and university, that's education done? But you just brought up something, and we're seeing it even more now. People are furthering their education at 30, 32, 30, 40 years old. I've got friends that are, and it's not just PhDs. A lot of it could be
just retraining,
or going back to things.
I go into quite often when I go into talks, and one of my favourite questions to say to people, how many of you got a degree? And 90% of the room will put their hand up and say, yes, I've got a degree. And how many of you are using the degree that you qualified in? Yeah. And we're down to 2%. And I think sometimes, I think university is a great place for kids to learn to be independent. I don't think it's a great place for them to choose the career for the rest of their lives.
Yes, I agree. But we're in the education system, that's what we're telling them to do.
Absolutely. You do your GCSEs, now you focus on science or arts or whatever, you take your 3 A-levels and then you go to university. I'm not sure. I think from here, it's a great idea for kids to go to UK universities simply because they need to get out of the safe environment that they've lived in all their lives here. And I think that's absolutely essential. But I don't think it's essential for them to say, I must do accounting because I'm going to be an accountant for the rest of my life. No. Go and do your degree, enjoy it, do a degree you really love, and then choose what you want to do for the rest of your life.
Maybe it's the enjoyment factor that I had at university that makes me not remember anything that I did at university.
I have to say, I'm very glad there wasn't social media when I was in university.
I was reading your website, and in the blog section, there was quite an interesting article about GCSEs and how it's like a really solid block that, like, it's an important, it's almost, well, tell us, what GCSEs in England we do between 14 to 16?
So we basically do them in year 11 of school.
Yeah.
So they're the first stage that you can leave school from. So that's not the same here, obviously, because you can't leave school and still stay on a visa here. But in the UK, year 11, you do your GCSEs, then you decide, do you want to go to an FE college? Do you want to leave and get work? Do you want to go back and do A-levels? Not so much IB because there's not so much an offer there. Yes. And they're great. So in theory, if you want to leave, you need to have 5 GCSEs. So you need to have your English, your maths and your science. Why? I have absolutely no idea, because they don't make you a better work person. But they're kind of the criteria that we filter kids on as to whether or not they're going to go and do anything else.
We're kind of getting to a point where flexiness in education is almost the message of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
How do we educate people in the right way, but also because there has to be some structure?
Yeah, I mean, the point we're at the moment is that education's not going to change from it. There are a lot of investigations, a lot of reports, and a lot of sort of studies going on, and education will change, but it's not going to change for 10 years. So for the next 10 years, if your children are between the ages of sort of, 1 and 18, they're in the system they're in, and you just have to suck it up. That's it, And I'm really sorry to say, yes, you can choose between Indian curriculum, American curriculum, British curriculum, IB curriculum. There's lots of different curriculums to choose from, but they have to suck it up. Now, what we're seeing is a lot of parents are going towards home learning, and I think that's the worst thing in the world you could ever do. Yes, it's cheap, and yes, it stops your child who might be stressed or might not like David sat in their class. Yes, it solves those problems, but for me, school isn't actually about learning. School is about social skills.
Yeah, I was going to
ask
you about
picture.
more sort of life skills with online learning.
Online learning, I think, to do full-time online learning is extremely, extremely lonely. And yes, you'll pick up your GCSEs that you need to pick up, and yes, you can learn, and you can pass your exams. But what do you miss? What do you not have in your life if you don't have friends at school? Why do kids go to school? They don't go to school because they want to do science, or they're dying to do their history class. No. They go to school because they want to see their friends.
Yeah. I had a guy on the show a few months ago who had taken his kids out of school and was following there's quite a strong system that Nelson Mandela followed when he was in jail and all this kind of stuff. And I was really sold on it. And his sales pitch to me, or his sort of theory, was they're able to do school, 6 or 8 hours of school in a third of the time. Yeah. They're also able to progress at their speed, not at the speed of the smartest guy or girl or the slowest in the class. So they go at their speed, and they could be a year ahead in maths and all this flexibility that he was talking about. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And my question was what you said. Well, I don't really know what I did at school, but I can tell you all the fights I had and the girls I used to chase around the yard and all this kind of stuff.
It's where you learnt your life skills.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. Online learning, you can fly through, and you can do really well on it. But I always worry, and it's great in circumstances. Some circumstances, it's great. But I think the bigger picture is, what do you lose by not being in school? And, when you talk to anyone, yeah, actually, I quite enjoyed school, or I got this out of school. And people may not love school, but it's such a foundation to all of their learning.
But if we sort of carried on our track of finding out what kids like, and we were able to educate them for 3 or 4 hours in the morning, and then have them in various different groups, whether they like arts and crafts, or whether they like sport or drama or whatever it is, and then they had more time to go to those activities, do we not reach a point of, I wouldn't say compromise, but we get a good balance, because we get an advanced education system through...
I think there's a lot in that, and I think what we're seeing is we're actually seeing some schools doing that already.
Right.
So we've certainly got fast-track sports programs. When I was working in the UK, 20 years ago, we were doing academy programs, which was exactly that, where you were doing your academics in the morning, and then you were going to do your golfing, your rugby, your football, whatever in the afternoon. And that's great if you know what you want to do. Mm. What you don't want to do is for a child who doesn't know what they want to do. That's a really long sentence. But you don't want them to be pigeonholed into being an artist, when actually they could have been a doctor if they'd picked up science. Because the thing with children is they will always take the path of less resistance.
Really?
Usually, yeah.
Is that humanity?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it comes back as well to giving kids a choice.
Yeah, so it was my daughter, for instance, whatever her friends are doing is the one she's going to do, and I'm looking at going, you're not going to enjoy that. Yeah, but she'll convince herself she is, because her friends are doing that. And I think there's a lot of peer influence is quite big when you're in school as well. So to some extent, yes, you want them to have choice. Yes, you want them to take responsibility for their own lives, but you also don't want them to take the wrong path, because peer pressure and least resistance has been the overriding factor.
It's a tough one. Another sort of barrier that I hear spoken about a lot is financial.
Yeah.
I hear of some schools in Dubai, could be 100,000 dirhams, 20,000 pounds a year.
Is this why you're glad you don't have children? Okay.
Pretty much. I can have bikes instead.
Yeah, you could buy a whole car for the cost of schools.
Literally.
Yeah, schools are really expensive. Now, the thing is education. And I think, people get very hung up on being in the outstanding school and they're 120, 140,000 a year, which, when you've got a few kids and school fees are not part of your packages anymore.
Yeah.
It's massive. It's really massive. But education is education. End of story.
Right.
And you can put your child, but you've got to be careful. And I always say, go into a school where your child fits. Don't try and be something you're not. Go in, look at the children, look at the school and go, yeah, I feel comfortable here. And it doesn't matter if it's the cheapest school or the most expensive school, as long as you can afford it, obviously. It's about ensuring it's a good fit for your child.
Does that come back to parents' ideals that they want to be able to say their children are in the best school?
Yes, and that comes down to schools like Dubai College that are selective, where, parents will tutor their kids for 2 years to get them into Dubai College. Well, if you're tutoring your kid to that intensity, what's going to happen is that you'll be tutoring them right the way through university because they're not there naturally. Wow. That's not their natural fit. And your child will never feel bright in that school because that's not where they should be.
You're really making me happy with my choice of not having children.
Yeah, I can lend you some if you want some.
No, I think I'm okay.
I'll hand them over.
Kids these days seem to have an insane amount of time commitments. Hopefully you're watching the
raise
video
my eyes?
version and you can see Heather's eyes there. I mean, I've shown my sister has some young kids and they're coming teenagers now, and rugby practice at 6:30 a.m. and not getting to bed till 9 p.m. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on this insanely long school day.
That's definitely a Dubai thing. I mean, I think sort of in the UK, kids will specialise in one or two sports. Here, I have got parents that come to me and the child is 5 and they're doing Japanese on a Monday, they're doing Chinese on a Tuesday, they're doing rugby on a Wednesday, they're doing violin and Mandarin on Thursday, and then they're doing horse riding on Saturday and tennis on Sunday. And you're looking at them going, and I will actually say to parents, they have a whole life, your children. And they're looking and going, what do you mean? I said, well, they don't have to learn skiing, karate, tennis, horse riding in their first year of being able to walk. We have a lot of time to work out what they like. And the problem is that you get a lot of dropout then because the child is doing, all of these activities and they're basically exhausted. And they're saying, I don't do golf anymore. Of course they do want to do golf, but I'm exhausted, not I don't want to do golf. They've got to be able to specialise in a few things. So I think, yes, the days are very long, but I think also to some extent, children should specialise. You don't need to be throwing tutoring and everything at them at once. There's a point where you say, it's for fun.
I think a lot of that is lost. Like, I see kids coming, we run a kids program here at the gym, and I see some kids coming in and I look a lot at people's body language, and it's frightening what you kind of see because they're mentally drained.
Yeah.
Whereas I remember when we would go to sports as kids, it's that fun and that energy and that smile. And it pains me sometimes because I sort of think like this kid's just knackered.
Yeah, I saw there was an article recently, I think maybe yesterday it came out, International Happiness Day, that said this generation of children are far less happy than previous generation. And I think there's a lot to be said, social media, communication. When we were kids, you didn't actually know what your friends were doing, so you did what you wanted to do.
Yeah,
now, social media is dictating that, David's gone to football, I think I should be going to football. Jessica's gone to this, I think I should be doing that. So-and-so's doing drum package. And I just think that we're almost trapped into keeping up with everyone because that's what we're seeing every day.
It's pretty rough, isn't it?
It is. I think I think being a kid now is the hardest it's ever been.
Do you worry about children's cognitive development due to fatigue?
Yes, and they are exhausted. Yes, and so one of my conversations is we'll get parents come to us and they say we need 5 hours tutoring a week, and I'm looking at them going, no, you don't. You need 1 hour, and but there's no buts. A child cannot learn faster because you put more into them. They can only learn at a certain speed. So if I teach you for 2 hours, you're going to learn the same as if I teach you for 5 hours. But on those other 3 hours, your child can have fun.
Yeah, or sleep.
Sleep would be good too.
It's funny because it's exactly the same equation when it comes to health and fitness. Yeah. People want to get fit and they're like, I'll train 5 times this week. And it's like, okay, show me in your schedule where there's 5 extra hours and how much stress we're actually, this is one of the biggest things. And I don't know, my again, outside theory on some of the learning disabilities that we're seeing is actually just due to fatigue and problems that actually maybe wouldn't have been a problem for a child before because they're not just smoked the whole time. Yeah. They're actually now, the kid can't concentrate on, and we could run a simple example, but on a Tuesday morning, it's always spelling and he actually or she actually can't concentrate because Monday's such a big day. Then what happens? Oh, well, this kid is now dyslexic. Yeah. Whereas, and I know professionally there are certain signs, and tests that can be done, like you said, from the age of 7 or 8, but it's quite risky because of the fatigue we're putting the children under.
Oh, totally. And they are, we see students coming to us, they'll say, oh, I fell asleep in my history lesson, or I fell asleep. Kids falling asleep in school, no, that's not right. That shouldn't be. And the other problem is, don't forget, not only are we kind of making them do their rugby, tennis, guitar, whatever it is, sometimes it's back to back after school. Yes. They're coming home and they're going on their social media after that as well. So it's like their days aren't finishing at 7 when they go to bed. Their days are finishing at 11 when they finish talking to their friends.
You've mentioned it a few times. You mentioned it there. Tech, social media.
Hate it. What worries me most about social media is children are no longer living their own lives. They're living everyone else's life and they're getting stressed by everyone's life. And the problem with social media, and the thing is, you only see the high points, you never see the low points. So everyone else is thinking that my kids are thinking everyone else's lives are perfect, and they're not seeing that they're being shouted at for not cleaning their rooms like my kids are. But that's not on social media, so they don't believe it's happening. And I just think there's an unrealistic expectation about being perfect now.
That'd be quite cool. I think. Imagine when you were young, you're just posting. Oh, my mum just belted me with a wooden spoon.
You'd be arrested now.
How good would that be?
Yeah, but that's not on there, is it?
It should be.
Yeah, reality check.
Literally, I one of my fondest memories of being naughty and getting rightly punished for it was when I was a kid, I used to collect camel whips.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do. They were very, very cheap and very useless. The only good use for them was when I stepped out of line to get bashed with one. And if Mum couldn't get the wooden spoon, she'd get that. And one day I remember just snapping one in half so she couldn't hit me with it anymore. That would be quite a good photo for my social media as well. But there are net positives in education, in life, society of tech.
Absolutely.
But from what we've spoken about and the way, it's tough and it's hurting the kids, but the kids maybe don't really know it. So my question is, how can we're not going to make social media go away. You and I could commit the rest of our lives to it, but we probably wouldn't get very far. How do we manage it?
I have absolutely no idea. I think anybody who's got the answer to that question could make a million. I think the thing is balance, isn't it? So, as a parent, boundaries, which parents out here aren't particularly good at, but, it's boundaries about the amount of screen time. And in fact, we've talked about this numerous talks, boundaries, discipline, making sure that no really means no, and balance. Just because you see this pretty picture does not mean that's the reality. And I know I do that with my children an awful lot, and they're sort of saying, oh, but so-and-so's done this and so-and-so's done that. And I'm going, yeah, but what haven't they done? What else haven't they done? I took my children on a 6-week tour. When I was a child, my mum wouldn't let me go interrailing when I finished school. And she died in February last year. So my thing was, right, you wouldn't let me interrail. So even as a 55-year-old, I'm still thinking I couldn't go because she'd sort of been so adamant I couldn't do it. And I said to my kids, I said, right, we're going this summer. So we interrailed all summer, which was amazing. Way. Stayed in grotty places, we'd fabulous time. And only me and the kids. And they was like, but Mum, so-and-so's been to so-and-so. I said, guys, I have taken you around Europe for 6 weeks. I said, that is probably more, you've learned more in that time 100%. Interrailing than your friend learned in 4 days in the Maldives. But they went to the Maldives and look at these beautiful pictures. I'm just like, guys, their social media it's not the story,
It's so hard though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then we've got the flip side of gaming and professional YouTubers and the fact that kids are watching YouTube of gamers.
Yes. Why?
Well, I mean, it's difficult because if we go back to what we said, that kids should do what they enjoy doing, if there's a certain amount of enjoyment out of gaming and you can make all the money that these young people are making from playing, I'm totally with you, Heather. I think it's fucking terrible.
Are we allowed to swear?
You can be as angry as you want.
Do you know what makes me so cross? So when I was youngster, when I was sort of 15, 16, and I used to sail every weekend, I used to go sailing, and we used to pitch up at the club, and you were lucky if you get a space on a boat because everybody wanted to sail, and the crew got selected. Now I go down there, and the boats aren't sailing because they can't get youngsters to crew. Why?
Wow.
What changed? Gaming, social media, iPads. Kids are happy binge watching TV, being on social media, gaming. What do they get? So when they do Christmas with their grandchildren, what story do they tell their grandchildren?
Do they?
But that's it, isn't it? That is not a story. I mean, I can tell stories of, going overboard and nearly drowning, and my kids are like, oh God, Mum, you lived, unfortunately for us, you survived, But the story's there, and the crew and the fun and everything you have. I cannot find a story about sitting and gaming. By the way, I can't game. I'm no good at it.
I don't even know how it works.
No, I'm the same.
Yeah. I don't know. And then it comes back and it becomes a lot deeper question for me is this is evolution.
Yeah.
This is the way it's supposed to go.
But why? What for me, you fit, you go outside, you do fitness, you do running, you do sport, and that leads into so many other things.
Yeah.
I sit on an iPad and all I've got is hunched shoulders and sore thumbs and what? And eyes that need glasses, and what have I learned?
You haven't so much learned, but depending on what you've seen or what you've bought, you've got an equal or greater dopamine release than what you got from outside. I mean, yeah, I think it's terrible, mate. I'd much rather spend 5 hours running up a mountain to look at the view at the top, even if it was terrible rain and horrible, than, but that's where I also question, like, my attention span to watch something is terrible.
Yes, and mine.
But I've always been like that because I was in boarding school. We weren't allowed to watch TV.
No, but I mean, you're younger than me, obviously. But when I was little, we used to have 2 hours of TV on BBC that you had to get up, turn the TV over. And I remember sitting watching the test card because I was so bored one day,
Yeah.
But we didn't have 24 hours of TV on 900 different channels. You had to go and find something else to do.
I was talking at school a few weeks ago, and I had a few slides because I was talking to 16-year-olds, and they don't want to listen to my shit. They'd rather see some pictures. And, as always, you don't want the presentation to be a nightmare. And I said to them, do you want me to send you it in advance? How do we do it? They said, no, it's okay. Just come in and we'll do it via AirPlay. And I was like, okay, that's cool. We've obviously got the technology. As we were setting it up, the lady that was setting it up, she said, yeah, we're a full Apple school. And I thought, wow, that's quite interesting, but I have no idea what that means. I said, what does that actually mean? Does every child have to have like a MacBook or? And she said yes in a roundabout way. So now what we've got an education system that's forcing the device. And I think you said this earlier, it's okay here, but when you want to relax, no, you can't have it. Take this football and go and kick it against that wall. So we're creating conflict in children's minds.
Yeah, we are.
So we're ruining it for them as well.
Yeah, we are. Totally. You know, on one side, education's on the computer. On the other side, you're saying, well, actually, you can't do your education on the computer. I mean, come on, you know?
So where does it go then?
I have no idea. I mean, I have to say, I kick back against technology. I have always kicked back against technology. I'm still an old believer. You know, we were just talking about your notepad earlier on. You know, I'm a writer. I love writing. I love words. I can't do Twitter because Twitter's how many characters?
160 or 120.
It's like, you know, I'm very old-fashioned, but that doesn't mean that the move forward isn't wrong. The move forward is right, and there's lots of efficiencies to be gained from technology. And, you know, technology will continue to drive our world. I mean, I was doing a talk in Beijing a while ago, and I was staying in this hotel. Everything was in Chinese, and not surprisingly because it was Beijing. I do get that, but I couldn't work the curtains. I couldn't work everything. Everything was on remote control, and I was so stressed by it because I don't do technology, and the kids laugh at me, and I refuse to be drawn into that world. But that doesn't mean I don't think it's a bad world. I think it is a good world, and I think there's lots of advantages, and I love the fact that you can access books and information, and it's all online. It's all at your fingertips. It's not a wrong world, but it's one that has to be managed with personal happiness, resilience, and I keep coming back to this word, resilience, and a balanced lifestyle. There has to be an outside and an inside, and the outside still has to be good for kids.
I think that's a really beautiful way to sort of bring it together. It's not either or.
No.
It's
a fusion. And there's positives. But it can't, it's like anything. Ice cream is great in small portions. Ice cream in massive portions not good for you. It's the same thing.
Heather, amazing. It's honestly, you're passionate. Your website, one of the brand values of what you guys do is passion. It comes from everywhere, and it's awesome to see, because I think that's another thing that's missing. A lot of people are doing things that they're not passionate about. So to see you doing something that you're passionate about, helping people, is absolutely beautiful. If people are interested to learn more about what you guys do and how you can potentially help their children if they meet your criteria of sending them outside and all of that, where can they find you?
So we're just on the website, Heather Harris, and it's Harris, IES at the end, which is the Welsh.
That's the Welsh way.
That's the Welsh one, yes, absolutely. Just find us on the website. I think I'm on social media, various things, EdHub. And, you know, we are expensive. And I'll say to everyone, we are expensive, but your child always comes first.
I think that's the right thing. I think what you do and the way that you do it, it deserves a price tag.
Yeah, but I do a lot for free. I'll say that to anyone.
Well, you've sat here for an hour answering my mundane questions.
We've had such a lovely conversation. But no, I always think, you know, if you can't afford it, still come and talk to me, because an hour of my time and I can still turn your child around, and that it's nothing for me to see your child do well. So please, don't ever be put off by the price. Let us help if we can.
Thank you so much for talking to me and for what you do for children. I think it's amazing.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.